Press briefing with a late start. It's a little beyond our control. We have a very, very busy minister with us this morning. The Minister for Agriculture, Forestry and Lands, the Honourable Peter David. We also have with us Mr. Elvis Moraine, the Permanent Secretary, as well as Mr. Gregory Del Sol, the Coordinator of the AgriCom project. Without any further ado, I'll hand you over immediately to the Honourable Peter David. Good morning.
Morning, thank you. And again, I do want to apologize for our late start because of previous commitments, and I think even GIS themselves were part of that commitment that I just came from. So thanks a lot for your patience, and I'm here this morning to speak about agriculture. In particular, responding to all of the discussions taking place around the Caribbean, around Grenada, around the world about the Soufrière volcano in St. Vincent, and where does Grenada fit in all of that? What is Grenada's response? So first of all, I want to join the government, join our Prime Minister, join our several ministers in expressing our solidarity with the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Of course, it's been a week now, and things are, I believe, improving slightly, but it's going to have a long-term serious impact on St. Vincent, and I dare say on food availability in the Southern Caribbean. Food security is an important issue for us, and St. Vincent has been, in a sense, a major producer, supplier of many products, agricultural products, and including livestock, and therefore we have run the risk of increased prices, we run the risk of shortages, and we run the risk of having a negative impact on the food situation in the Caribbean. The situation was already there before then, in one sense, in terms of our food import bill. Grenada alone imports over $300 million a year in food products, and we were, in fact, one of the mandates we have, and I want to welcome the team here this morning with me. One of the mandates we have is to do what we can to reduce the food import bill. With respect to the people of St. Vincent and Grenadines, we have responded in Grenada. We have responded by several things. I want to thank the people of Grenada also for coming out and mobilizing water, mobilizing other resources for St. Vincent. The government has made a commitment of $1 million to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we do expect that the international community, the donor community, will also join that in the next several months to help improve St. Vincent. I've been in constant contact with Saboto Cesar, the agricultural minister in St. Vincent. He's out in the field. In fact, on Sunday morning, we were in a meeting together, a very public discussion on Zoom. And he has indicated that there is maybe a 60% loss. I think in the red zone, everything is gone. In the orange zone, everything is gone, and that is the main agricultural section of St. Vincent. So they are in a difficult position, and we as a country must mobilize to assist St. Vincent and the Grenadines, not only in the short term, but also in the long term. We ourselves experienced Hurricane Ivan. We know the impact it had on us. We know the impact it had on our food production. We know that after Hurricane Ivan, we lost several markets because of our failure, their inability to produce. So we understand, we more than anybody else in this part of the world understand what is going to happen in St. Vincent. I must say, though, that there was a farmer at the meeting on Sunday, and he was quite optimistic, and so is the agricultural minister, that they will get up and running. The Prime Minister of St. Vincent has indicated just that. So we in Grenada have to support St. Vincent now and in the long run. Now, the question that arises, and I hear it all over, is what is Grenada going to do? How are we in the agricultural ministry, in the agricultural sector, going to respond? And it is going to be in several ways. First of all, increased food production. That is something that was on the table prior to the Soufriere volcano in St. Vincent. It was on the table, and we were in active discussions. Permanent Secretary Moraine here and Del Sal, they are both members of Gregory Del Sal, both members of our management team. There are other members of the management team, both and all inclusive of our livestock people, and we had a plan. And we're working on a plan. So we are going to respond by increased production. We are going to respond by assisting St. Vincent, and I welcome your questions in that regard.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Colleagues, the floor is now open for questions. Anybody ready yet with their questions? All right, Minister, while we wait on our colleagues to be ready, you mentioned a minute ago about increasing food production. What is the plan in that sense, and what are we looking at? When are we planning to start?
Well, we've already started. In fact, I had discussions with several persons in St. Vincent last week who are requesting products from Grenada. And we have activated a process in the ministry to increase production in the country. We've also been working closely with the Marketing and National Import Board, because that would be a key component. And we also have to work with farmers and farmers' organization. Now, the ministry itself is not going to be doing all of the increasing production. It's going to be our farmers to increase production, and it's going to be the Marketing Import and National Import Board to do the distribution. We have already looked at several government estates. We are focusing on one of these estates. The Granborough estate is currently now under review. In fact, a team went out to the estate on Monday morning. We've looked at the estate. We've determined how we will proceed to production. The first thing we must do is decide what we are going to produce. We have to ensure that we just don't go wildly. I mean, some people would want us to start immediately and just start doing. That is understandable. But we have to first decide what the market will want, because you can be producing X, but the market demands Y. So we have to first make a determination, and we are going to do that in collaboration with the farmers and in collaboration with the Marketing and National Import Board. They know what the products are required in Grenada. They also know what is required in Trinidad, what is required in St. Vincent. They have been outside there for quite a number of years, so they will help us in that regard. Once we determine what products we are going to produce, we are going to do two things. One, the government, the ministry itself, will be seeking to get Granborough Estate under production. We've already indicated to the cabinet that we will be coming to them with a proposal within the next 2 weeks, within the next week, sorry, we told them a week ago, within the next week, as to the process of getting Granborough up and running. And what products we're going to produce and how we are going to be doing that production. The second thing is to work with farmers. One of the shortcomings I think we have is lack of coordination with farmers, lack of coordination in terms of what is produced and how much is produced. So we are going to be talking to the farmers. We have our extension services, extension officers who are going to go into the market, find out what farmers are producing, what farmers are capable of producing, and we are going to help them in that regard, both with agronomical support, with the agronomy division helping them with the methods, and any other assistance they would need. In addition to that, as I said, we are going to utilize government lands. Remember also that the Youth in Agriculture program is about to be launched. That Youth in Agriculture program, we'll have a specific discussion on it at some point, but just in a nutshell, it would bring youth together to engage in agricultural production. Government providing the land through the land bank, and the youth coming together in cooperatives or individually, I think that to be determined, to increase production. So we are going to be doing that in order to satisfy the current shortages. But more importantly, we are looking at the long run. And we are going to come back to that at a later stage, because we are not yet ready to roll out everything, but we are going to come back at a later stage to determine, to speak more about the long run. But immediately, we are going to be triggering all of this to ensure that the current shortages of supplies that may result as a result of the volcano in St. Vincent is adequately dealt with.
Thank you, Minister. Linda Straker, good morning. Linda, good morning. Are you there? Are you hearing us?
Yes, I am hearing you.
All right, go right ahead. Good morning.
Sorry about that. I didn't unmute. My question this morning is following up with what the minister would have just announced, government's decision to increase production by venturing into the government estates. We know that some of these estates has been not operational as traditional for a long time. Can you share with us what type of management structure has been considered for reactivating these estates? And he did mention that research will be done into the type of produce that should be targeted. But I know earlier this week I learned of inquiries coming in from the Ministry of Agriculture point of view and his knowledge. What are some of the produce that Grenada is having inquiries about, and how do we plan on benefiting these produce in the short term? Long term is one story. What is the short term for benefit? And can he also provide us with an update on the marijuana proposed legislation, please?
Yes, with respect to what products, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is best known for root crop production. So root crops, the Tanya, the Dasheen, the yam, Edos, all of these products are coming out of St. Vincent in large amounts. So there will be a shortage of that, of course. We have present production in the ground that we can utilize to satisfy the market. In fact, on the way to this press conference, I was in conversation with a gentleman in St. Vincent who is now trying to get products in order to feed the Vincentian population. And he's contacted us. He's in touch with the marketing board. So we are currently engaged in discussing with him what is his current demand, but also we know that St. Vincent has supplied these root crops, and that is well known throughout the region that they are the best at that in the Southern Caribbean. So certainly we are going to be increasing production in that, and we are going to be working with the farmers to see what current production is, and then make a determination of the extent of our operations going forward. With respect to the management structure, we are going, as I said, we have, there is one government estate, the Bellevue Estate, which is currently commercialized. So there is a person who is managing it the company is based in Trinidad. We are going to be talking with them to discuss how we work with them to increase production on Bellevue. But with respect to the other estates, the Grand Bride, the Mount Rule, we currently have somebody who manages the estate. We are going to work closely with our agronomy division based in Maribor, St. Andrews, and they are going to be coming together, the agronomy division, along with the manager, and to assign a senior agronomist to the estate to ensure that production is enhanced. I believe we can make it work. I know there have been several attempts over the years, and there have been some difficulties, but the structure is going to remain under the ownership of the government. But there's also a proposal to allow certain private entrepreneurs through the Youth in Agriculture program and through the other mechanisms to partner with the private sector to get investments. I have said, and I repeat here, maybe some persons won't agree with me, but I do believe our private sector needs to invest more in agriculture. I think our private sector needs to see agriculture as a profitable enterprise. And therefore, I am calling on the private sector as we sit here to come forward with capital to invest. There are many persons who are now interested in agriculture, particularly in a post-COVID period, who want to do some production. I have heard many wonderful proposals from young people. The biggest problem is capital. So we are going to be working with the private sector. We are going to be working with the banks, with all of the financial institutions to see if we could get capital to partner with labor and to partner with the land to ensure increased production. So that is what we envisage going forward, and we are going to be having discussions on these. I must say at this time also that sometime in May, late May, we are planning a major conference on agriculture where we are going to bring the farmers, we are going to bring our international partners, our regional partners, the FAO, ICA, UNDP, all of them together. We are going to be bringing our livestock people, we are going to be bringing our suppliers together to talk about moving agriculture forward. We need to come together as a nation and treat agriculture as good business. You know, people talk about government's treatment of agriculture. I agree. Okay, I take criticism that we are not doing enough, but I also blame all of us. Because I said to some people the other day, you know, you have a family, and somebody is bright, so you tell them go study medicine. The other one is bright, you tell them go study engineering. Another one doesn't want to do either medicine or engineering, so you treat him as if he's not bright, but he may be bright, but you have not identified his talent. So you say just go do agriculture. In other words, we as a nation must also treat agriculture as important. We must also see agriculture as good investment. We must also see agriculture as a way we can send our kids to study. You know, a gentleman called me yesterday from the U.S. He said we have some scholarships for some people to study agriculture, but I ain't sure people in Grenada want to study agriculture at university. And I said that's not true. It is just that our families don't encourage them to go study agriculture sufficiently. So I'm not only calling on the government, I'm not only calling on the private sector, I'm calling on all of us as a nation to treat agriculture as important. But we'll come back to that when we have the conference. We'll come back to a national discussion, and I do hope everybody gets involved. I'm quite excited about it, as you see, but that's because I believe agriculture is a wonderful, wonderful vocation, and it's also very good business. The Byron. Yes, Linda, I'm not trying to duck your question. I just put it in the back of my head. Yes, the government has indicated, and we are going to stick to that commitment, to bring some legislation for discussion shortly. The first step is not going to be for mass production. The first step is going to deal with the criminal justice issues, meaning that there are many young people who have been criminalized, or not criminalized, who have received criminal records because of possession of small quantities. We are going to discuss, have a national discussion on the small quantities. The proposals will come before several stakeholder organizations within the next couple of weeks, and we are going to discuss what has been done through the region, which is the decriminalization of small quantities of cannabis. Not legalization, decriminalization, meaning that you will not have a criminal record if you have a small amount, and you'll be able to plant a few trees, maybe 2, 3, 4, I'm not sure what the final outcome will be. So certainly that piece of legislation will come before our stakeholder organizations within the next couple of weeks. With respect to cultivation, that is a larger, more difficult discussion. If you speak to other regions, even St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I had a long discussion with Soboto in St. Vincent on that. It is not as simple as we make it sound. So the agronomists, the economists, the financiers, everybody have to come together at some future date to discuss where we go on cannabis. I neglected to say another area that is going to be decriminalized is the use by members of the Rastafarian organizations, which will be allowed, which the suggestion is that they be allowed to use it for sacramental purposes, as sacrament. Yes?
Thank you, Minister. Nancy Maguire, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to ask if you have an update on the activities of the Cabinet Subcommittee that's looking into the agreement with Caribbean Agro and the price of feed for farmers, particularly now that we're looking at increased live production in the future.
Yes.
And secondly, relating to that price of feed, there are some poultry producers that have complained that the price increases that they had to implement for their products as a result of the increase in feed prices back in February, they're not getting those prices from retail, some of the retail outlets. So I'm just wondering if you could update us on those two issues. Thank you.
I didn't understand the last half of your question. You said the first thing is on the committee. The second part is that farmers were saying they did not get what?
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, I'm getting you.
Yes. The price increase that they had to pay for their feed meant that they had to increase the price of chicken and eggs sold to the retailers. And some of the retailers are not paying those increased prices. They're not passing on the price to the consumers, and they're not paying the price to the farmers.
All right. With respect to the first part of your question, yes, the Ministry of Trade is the lead ministry with respect to Caribbean Agro. There have been discussions between between Caribbean Agro and the Ministry of Trade. The PSA and the other colleagues have also been involved with that, but we do not have a conclusion yet. I believe a meeting is set up for later this week or early next week where the government is trying to work with Caribbean Agro to get reduced prices for feed. The fact is, and I agree with the farmers who say that unless we deal with the issue of the price of feed, we are going to not be able to deliver on our promise on the development of the livestock industry. I must say that livestock is critical for us. It's an integral part of the discussions we are having at the ministry. We are working with, I know my dear brother Del Sol here is working with Agricom, with some of the larger producers. I'm not sure if Gregory wants to say anything on that, but he's working with the producers. But what is clear is that the issue of the price of feed is an issue that we have to address. And of course, Mark, the Caribbean Agro is integral to that discussion. So I do not want to say anything out of turn. The Ministry of Trade is engaged in discussions. I am scheduled to attend a meeting with them sometime later this week or early next week, and we will certainly make a statement once these discussions are completed. With respect to the prices that are being offered to the chicken producers, I am not sure on that. That will come under the Ministry of Trade. I have no information, but I'll certainly look into it as we complete here today. I haven't heard from them on that.
Good morning, MTV.
Good morning. Good morning. Minister David, I have two questions for you. In terms of support for the livestock farmers, I know that you spoke about support for increase in production for, Grenada, but we do have a large exchange from St. Vincent in terms of livestock supply. Are there any plans in place to provide the support for the livestock farmers? And my second question is on the crop compensation schedule. Do we have an updated version as yet? I know the last time I checked it was 1995 and we're in 2021.
Okay, with respect to your second question, I will have my dear brother Del Sol address that, and then I will come back to the livestock thing after that.
Okay, good morning, and thanks for your question. In respect to the crop compensation schedule, as you said, the last time we updated it was 1995, and there's been some clamoring out there, especially by farmers, who indicate that the prices that we have within the schedule for the value of crops are very low. And the ministry has started to look at that, and we are going to propose, I think we have to go through, PS correct me if I'm wrong, through legal affairs, to submit a new schedule to them in order to have that amended. So the ministry is cognizant of that, and we are working on updating the schedule. Thanks.
Thank you, Gregory. And on the issue of livestock, well, let me first start by saying this, that the livestock sector is one that we've been critically addressing over the last couple of months. We believe that we can increase livestock production to the extent that we can take care of local demand. In terms of pigs, in terms of cows, in terms of sheep and goat, we can do that. There are some exciting new projects in livestock taking place around the country on the initiative of some private entrepreneurs. I want to commend them for their work, and I want to commend them for taking the plunge and investing in it and putting their money where their mouth is. I also want to commend our livestock people within the ministry. We have a team of 3 young vets who have all gone away, and they've trained, and they are now back excited to get work done to improve the livestock sector. They, for example, with respect to pigs, they have gone around the country and they have identified several pig farmers with whom they are going to work to improve the stock. They have also identified sheep and goat farmers. They've identified some cattle farmers. So they are working on that. They have submitted for our consideration a proposal with respect to artificial insemination in order to improve the breed of cows. So, for example, rather than have cows that weigh 800 or 900 pounds, you have cows that weigh 2,500 pounds because of their breed. And we are now in the process. I think several years ago there was a similar program, more than 10, 15 years ago, maybe less, but that has not been repeated. And we are working with the gentlemen in the livestock sector and gentlewomen in the livestock sector to get that done. With respect to how that relates to St. Vincent, exactly. St. Vincent supplies a lot of livestock to us and to other countries in the Southern Caribbean. We have spoken to the government of St. Vincent. We have spoken through a local farmer to the farmers in St. Vincent, and St. Vincent is in a terrible state with respect to livestock, primarily because of lack of feed. You know, you can imagine what the ashes have done, what the ash has done to the bush and to the grass that they consume. So we are making arrangements, hopefully arrangements in the next couple of days, to bring to Grenada, of course, through our veterinary people, ensuring that disease-free and all of that, all of the protocols will be observed, to improve our stock, and maybe if we get sufficient, to distribute some to particular farmers who are interested in the program to improve their own stock. And we hope that through that we'll improve our stock, but importantly in all of this, including our food production, to assist St. Vincent when they are ready to come back up. So we will have the stock here, we will have the breeds, both in all of the livestock sectors and in food crop production, so that and St. Vincent will come back with a bang. You all know that ash does improve reproductivity, so we are here prepared to help them. We do not see this thing as a zero-sum game. We do not see the crisis in St. Vincent as something that we will take advantage of. We see it as something where we will fill the vacuum, where we will ensure that food production continues, that food supply continues, that prices are stabilized, and that St. Vincent will receive from us what they need when they are ready to come back on their feet. There is enough demand in the Southern Caribbean, in the whole Caribbean, and throughout the world, if we get agriculture right in the Southern Caribbean. So that is not a competition between us and St. Vincent, or us and St. Lucia, or us and Barbados for that matter. It is simply all of us taking advantage of whatever comparative advantages we have to ensure that food production is increased, and to ensure that all of us in the region reduce that enormous, ridiculous, crazy food import bill that each of us has.
Thank you very much. GBN, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to Minister. Minister Peter, I was wondering, the issue of predatory larceny is still a big issue as it relates to farmers. And while you are encouraging farmers to increase their production now, many farmers are still complaining that predatory larceny is still a big issue for them. And the predatory larceny department in the Royal Grenada Police Force is not as effective as they would have wanted it to be. So what promise do you have for farmers, or reassurance that when they do increase their production, they would benefit from their hard labor, or that they are protected from predatory larceny? Also, as it relates to marijuana, how soon will we be able to see the materialization of persons being able to grow these small amounts at home, and persons within the Rastafarian community being able to use the cannabis at small portions?
With respect to the cannabis, as I indicated earlier, within the next, some legislation has already been drafted. It will be distributed in the next week or so to some stakeholders. We are going to await some responses. The government's position is that at this time we have small amount of cannabis, small amount, a few plants, and that should be on the table for public discussion, although we don't anticipate much public discussion because the public has already discussed and already decided. It's an overwhelming call. This is just my opinion. I believe there's an overwhelming call for the decriminalization of the small quantities. So I believe that should come. I said late last year, and I said earlier this year, that I anticipate by June we should be ready to bring that to Parliament. That is, if the public is as responsive as it seemed to be at this time on the issue. With respect to pre-deal larceny, I've always said that if there are three issues that I hear when I go out, pre-deal larceny is always among and maybe top of the three. And you're absolutely correct. Farmers are devastated by that scourge, by these thieves who go out and steal people's produce. And these thieves must be dealt with. I have heard from the farmers. I have been out to the fields. I have seen their losses, and I feel their pain, and we have to respond. But our government, again, cannot wave a magic wand and get rid of pre-deal larceny. Be that as it may, we had discussions with the Commissioner of Police 2 weeks ago, because we believe that the Royal Grenada Police Force needs to step up its operations in that regard. We had discussions with respect to revitalizing the Farm Watch program that apparently, I am told by some farmers, was going quite well. And we have to properly equip the pre-deal larceny unit. That is a shortcoming. But again, we have to get our communities on board. We have to get our people on board. We at the ministry are going to be, in fact, currently we're expecting a report next week to do all that we have to do with respect to pre-deal larceny. But I call on the communities. I call on the farmers themselves. I call on the people out there who are buying produce and selling produce that they know are stolen. Unless they come aboard, unless we have the communities on board with the issue, we are not going to stop it. So I call on the people to work with the farmers, understand the farmers. I call on the farmers to keep advocating. I will do as much as I can, but I agree with you with a question which suggests that yes, that is one of the major issues confronting farmers. And I have heard farmers, and I'm talking about serious farmers, who have threatened to leave the industry because of pre-deal larceny and the impact it is having on their business. So yes, we are going to put that at the top of the agenda, and in the conference that I spoke about earlier, we are going to unveil the new initiatives we have in that regard. I think the PS would like to say something on that. PS Brain?
Good morning to everyone, and good morning to the listening and viewing public. Just to support the submission that Minister just made relative to pre-deal larceny, what Minister missed is that we have developed a full communication strategy for the pre-deal larceny efforts since we had the amendments and so on of the legislation. And it's just a matter of us finalizing some of the things that he spoke about in the report, and then we'll be having a full launch of that PR strategy. We have developed so far jingles, we've had billboards, so we'll be unveiling all of this. This is to support the call that the minister made relative to the public, because we can lick the police if we want, but I tell you what, pre-deal larceny needs a collective effort to solve the problem. We would not be able to do this. We could have, because I mean, if you look at it already, the police are already outnumbered. So it's a conscious effort where persons have to realize that you are actually delving in someone's livelihood. I mean, this is what some of the farmers are using to stay afloat, to send their children to school, you know. So once we take that level, and I am confident based on the jingle, what I've heard and so on, and some of the rollout of the billboards, that we can help. But we need a collective effort. We need the entire population to be with us to understand the value of the fight against pre-deal larceny. We also want, I just want to make one point also. We talk about soursop and, of course, Bruno Premier, and we call it the green gold and so on. And we have a very good market as we speak for the fresh produce into the U.S. I want to say to the public, we know that persons are involved, and what they're doing is not right. You are distressing farmers. But I tell you what, one negative reaction by the farmer in terms of addressing that issue, and we get into the U.S. market, and that's it. So our green goal would be no more. And I'm saying that to appeal to everyone to understand this fight is all of us. and not just the farmers and the police.
No, excellent points. No, go ahead. Other questions.
Okay.
Was there another one that I missed?
Yes, no. But somebody on social media is asking for an update on the GCA-GCNA merger.
GCA-GCNA. Yes, yes. I've had an important question, very important question. Since I've become Minister of Agriculture, I've had several meetings, too many to count, with both the GCA and GCNA. And the issue is not only the issue of merger and the other issues that have been discussed publicly, but the focus of the meetings always is how do we improve the nutmeg and the cocoa industries? How do we ensure that the nation is improved through the improvement of these industries? Because we are well aware that, I think it was George Bizan who called it black gold, nutmeg black gold, many years ago in a wonderful little booklet. And we have to recognize that our cocoa still remains premier on the international market, and our nutmeg still remains premier on the international market. So the discussions I've had with them have been, how do we improve the sector? In fact, I was amazed a couple of weeks ago in having discussions with them on how do we apply science, new science, to cocoa and nutmeg. And one of the instruments, and we'll talk more about it at a later date, that could be used to improve the science on cocoa and nutmeg is a PCR machine that we hear so much about in relation to COVID. But I'll get to the details of that a little later when myself and the cocoa and nutmeg boards, when we come to a conclusion as to how we utilize the PCR machines to improve the production in cocoa and nutmeg. With respect to the merger, we have had several discussions on that. In fact, I attended a meeting in Deluxe Cinema with a whole lot of farmers in the GCNA. I think it was a general meeting of GCNA farmers. And one of the farmers stood up, I never forget it, and said, listen, Minister, we don't have an issue with merger, We simply want to deal with the question of assets before we proceed to that stage. So that there are a number of issues that has to be sorted out before we get to the question of merger. The issues like assets, issues like what structure of organization, and we have set up a committee to discuss those issues as we proceed to have further discussions on the improvement of the cocoa and nutmeg industry. And I think we get caught up in all of these side discussions and lose sight of the major reason why government and farmers have to partner. Because it's a partnership. It's the importance of the industry. I must say that government did fulfill its commitment to give the loans to the nutmeg and cocoa board. They've received their loans and they've received grants. Both loans and grants have been sorted out. I think one loan is just about to be signed. I think the nutmeg board loan is about to be signed. The cocoa signed some time ago. But the grants, the loans and the grants have been... The loans are outstanding, but the grants are already... Let me repeat. We have fulfilled our commitments on the loans, on the grants, but the loans are in the process of being sorted out. But we are nearly there. It's just a matter of working out some fine details on that.
Thank you very much, Minister. MTV, you have another question?
Yes, my final question. Poultry farmers have been complaining about production costs, saying that this is one of the main reasons that a lot of them are leaving the industry. Does the government have any plans to provide any assistance of any kind to help ease them with these costs?
Well, the main production cost, as I understand it, is the cost of feed. And that the government has done what it can do with respect to concessions to allow reduced price. But we are currently, as I indicated earlier in response to an earlier question, the government is in discussions with the Caribbean Agro in order to get prices down. We believe that government must work with Caribbean Agro in that regard. And yes, we are going to do whatever we can to ensure that the price is reduced to the point where it is profitable. I do agree. With the small size of our economy, with the small size of our market, it is difficult to get the economies of scale that is required. What I do welcome is the coming into the market, the introduction into the market of about 3 or 4 major producers. What we envisage is through the Agricom project, and I think my dear brother Del Sol has been engaged with that. We have the big producers who do the cutting, the supplying to the market, the processing, and many small farmers who supply the goods to these large processors. I believe that model of 3 or 4 major producers at the top who are who receive, and sometimes through contractual arrangements, birds from the smaller producers who receive the feed at a reasonable price is a way for us to go, and can certainly lead to a reduction in the food import bill with respect to poultry. I think in poultry alone, we import about $30 million worth of chicken every year. We must reduce that $30 million to a more reasonable amount, and the only way we can do that is to make our local chicken affordable, because I think everybody accepts that it is the best, it is healthier. So we don't have to convince people it's healthy. We just have to make the price such that the average man can afford to buy local. Give it a choice between local and imported. Any day of the week, our people are going to eat local. Any day of the week. The point is, can they afford it? And that is where the price of the inputs need to be reduced in order to allow farmers to supply to the market at a more reasonable price.
Colleagues, any other questions from anybody? Right, it seems as though we've exhausted all questions. So, Minister, you have the opportunity to make any final remarks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. First of all, I want to thank the media for the excellent questions. I want to also thank our international partners who work with us in the Ministry of Agriculture, the UNDP, the FAO, ICA, all of these organizations who help us every day to achieve the objectives that we have set. I want to thank the team in the ministry, Permanent Secretary Maureen, Gregory Del Sol, Lawrence St. Louis, Marlon Paul, our vets, Dr. Cummins, Dr. St. Bernard, all of the extension workers. They work hard. And because we do not treat agriculture in the way we should treat it, sometimes they do so without adequate recognition. I want to thank all of them. Our agronomist, Alison Haynes up in Maribo, who works hell hard to supply the nutmeg plants. You know, she's right now trying to produce 30,000 nutmeg plants to deliver to nutmeg farmers. I want to thank all of them, first of all, for doing the work that they do, but secondly, for welcoming me with open arms and teaching me every step of the way. I've had a very excellent learning experience with these gentlemen. P.S. Maureen has his job hard. He's also the man in charge of the electoral commission. I'm not sure, it's not a commission, the electoral body. And so he has a whole lot of work. So I want to thank all of them genuinely from the bottom of my heart for the work they've been doing, and added to the international partners I mentioned. I also want to say this to the farmers, because we can't end without saying this. Thank you for being farmers in Grenada. We know it's difficult. We know it's hard. We know sometimes it's a no thanks work, as we say in Grenada all the time. We know sometimes society wants to look down on the work that you do. But believe you me, farming is the most noble profession there is in Grenada. Doctors can't practice if they don't eat. Prime Minister can't be Prime Minister if he doesn't eat. I can't survive if I don't eat. And you are the breadbasket. Or the bread baskets, or you are the persons who make this possible for all of us. So thank you to the farmers. Thank you to I'm not talking only about the crop farmers, the livestock farmers. Thank you to all of you for doing the work you do. And in ending, I want to say to you, please stay safe. And as many of you who want to vaccinate, please get your vaccine. The country will open, hotels will open, businesses will open, so they can eat more of your produce. As you're well aware, of the importance of the hotel industry for your produce, please get vaccinated so we can get back to normal and we can produce and show them what Grenada agriculture can deliver. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister Peter David, Minister for Agriculture, Forestry and Lands. Thank you as well to Permanent Secretary Mr. Elvis Moraine and Mr. Gregory Del Sol, the coordinator of the AgriCom projects. Colleagues, thank you so much for joining us via Zoom, and to all of you who joined us on the Channel 22 Facebook page and the YouTube channel as well. We thank you so much. And of course, we had post-cabinet press briefing today because of the official launch yesterday of the West Indies School of Hospitality, but we will be back with you next week, Tuesday, God's willing. Have a blessed day, everybody. Thank you.